Hello, welcome to Record Sports Hotline Live. My name is Daniel Cole. I'm delighted to be joined by Record Sports Craig Swan. Swanee, how's it going?
Hi Daniel, how are you?
I'm very good, thanks. It's good to have you aboard.
Good.
We're also joined as well by Record Sports Scott Burns. Burnsy, how are you?
Good evening, gentlemen. You all well?
Oh, well, thank you very much. I thought you were going to say something there, Swanee.
Enthusiastic welcome, was it?
Well, with that, I'm certainly fired up. I think the best place for us to start is with yourself, Burnsy, because I understand you have an exclusive story on the future of now former Celtic boss Brendan Rodgers.
Brendan Rodgers, yes, the two-time Celtic manager. Obviously, he left Celtic there last month. He's already been sounded out about possible new jobs in England already. But the feedback so far is that, as it stands, he is likely to go to Saudi Arabia come the summer. There are a couple of clubs who are interested. I think there are agents working on his behalf. There's the real strong interest there. And the feeling, well, certainly put to clubs who have inquired about him, is that, as it stands, that's going to be his likely next destination come the summer. Although the door remains open that if a big club, English Premier League club was to come in, or a top European club that floats his boat, that might change the goalpost. But as it stands, the most likely outcome is him heading to the Middle East. It's not really a surprise, because I think Brendan had the chance to go to Saudi Arabia. There was interest before he came back to Celtic the second time around. Mm-hmm. At that point, he wasn't really that keen on it. He was looking for another top European job. Obviously went at Celtic, but this time around, I think, well, I'm told the feeling is that he would be willing to now go out there. Obviously, it's a top league with the top names like Cristiano Ronaldo, etc. Mr. Gerrard was out there as a manager as well. So I think he is now very open to that avenue, and it'll be interesting to see what happens over the coming 6, 7, 8 months. But as it stands, the feeling is that, it's more likely he will go to Saudi Arabia.
I always think, Swanee, it's a wee bit depressing when, players and managers in their peak years, for want of a better phrase, go out to Saudi Arabia. But I get more and more are doing it now, and you can't really begrudge someone the kind of money that they'll be getting offered. It doesn't matter how rich you are or how much money you've got. If someone sits down and goes, here's life-changing generational wealth, can't really blame them.
Absolutely, you can't blame anybody for that. Listen, I understand the sort of criticism there's been in the league. I mean, they've obviously been trying to build the league up, and obviously the big names that they brought in to try and boost the profile, they were successful in that for a spell, and they have been, they are building guys up. There's an argument that most of the guys are past their best, but they've also been getting younger players over there as well. Listen, it's just, the world's changing now, and there's just different places to go and different avenues and different adventures for people to take. And if the door's open for somebody, as you say, if you get made an offer of that level, you wouldn't begrudge anyone taking it. So, and the football world is getting closer and closer as well, as we know that, there's World Club competitions and things like that. I mean, you're never going to get to a situation, I don't think, UEFA have made it pretty clear that there's not going to be breakaway leagues and that type of thing, but they're trying to bring it closer. And as I say, we saw the competition last summer with our clubs running about the world, so they are starting to get involved. I imagine more and more names are going to go to these destinations.
Bob in the comments, Burnsy says Saudi's a league for washed-up managers. Actually, this is a question for both of you. Do you think we'll get to a stage in the foreseeable future where Saudi is the new Premier League, where it's the place to go? They've got so many stars.
No.
Do you think so, Swanee?
My own belief is no. I don't think that will happen. I mean, I just think it would have to take a major change in the world football setup for that to happen. I think European football and the Champions League is going to remain the sort of pinnacle for players and managers, I would imagine. So I don't see it changing unless there is a complete change in the setup of world football where it all comes together into one. We talk about that World Club Championship. That's just a one-off tournament. It would need to be a seasonal thing, and I just don't think that's ever going to happen. Yeah. But we have spoken. Listen, we've seen what's happened with Live Golf, haven't we? And they made an attempt to go in and try and get some of the bit, but they couldn't get them all, and they're not going to get the main ones. They're just not going to get them. So you would imagine it's the same. And until that whole ecosystem changes, which it's not going to, as we obviously know where all the disagreements there for anyone who follows golf, they're just not going to come together, so it's not going to happen, and it's kind of dried up. And the same thing might happen. you might find that Saudi Arabia has another launch at it. They're still launching at it. But there may come a time when they realise we're just not breaking into this and it's just not taking off, and they might just walk away from it or tone it down a bit. Who knows?
Aye. I'd probably be inclined to agree with you. Mark points out it's way too hot to be considered a proper league. And David as well says Brendan might earn enough to buy out Desmond. I mean, that would certainly be an interesting turn of events. Should say if you're watching at home as well and you want to get involved in the conversation, please do so. Before I let you go, Burnsy, aside from that Rodgers exclusive, there's a couple of questions or comments rather we've had in on Aberdeen. As you were obviously at Aberdeen's 1-1 draw with Motherwell yesterday, I thought you were the best man to get your take on it. Thomas is written in saying, why do we have good players at Aberdeen but a rotten team? It's a disgrace. We sell out for games like yesterday but can't expect to beat Motherwell at home. And Ryan says, we can argue all we like about Thelin, but 11 points from 12 games, given the money spent this summer, and considering the squad, is absolutely atrocious. I mean, firstly, Burnsy, how were they yesterday, and can you argue with anything the guys are saying?
First half yesterday, it was, from an Aberdeen point of view, as a spectacle, it was really poor. Motherwell went up there and just basically did a typical 45-minute Motherwell performance where they just dominated the ball, passed it for fun, moved it about, but without any cutting edge at the top end, but they just kept the ball for fun. Aberdeen couldn't get near them. And a lot of people criticised Aberdeen. Basically Aberdeen sat off and let Motherwell play. And that is probably the best way to play against Motherwell, because if you go toe-to-toe with them, as Derek McInnes found out, they'll just pop it around you and make full use of the holes round the back when they went 3-0 up at Tynecastle. So, in fairness to Jimmy Thelin, that's probably the best way to approach this Motherwell game, because they still went in at half-time, 0-0, and then Motherwell, as usual, they ran out of steam, they never got the goal, and then Aberdeen came into the game in the second half. So, it wasn't a great spectacle to watch from Aberdeen point of view, but I thought the game plan was okay. Then they went ahead. The criminal thing for Aberdeen was that the goal they conceded from the corner. I don't know if you've seen it, but at the short corner, where the players weren't even watching, and Elijah Just has knocked in a corner from Callum Slattery. That's like schoolboy stuff. That shouldn't be happening at this level. But I mean, the point is, Aberdeen were 1-0 up. They then draw one each. It's probably, if you look at it, Aberdeen don't have a great record against Motherwell at Pittodrie, but the Aberdeen fans still expect them to beat teams like Motherwell at Pittodrie. But the way Motherwell play, Motherwell are streets ahead of them. Aberdeen are maybe well set up. They're picking up a few results now since he's gone to 3 at the back, but as a result, they're maybe harder to beat at times. Okay, Athens was the exception, but they're harder to beat at times. But at the other end, they're losing like the sort of that's something in the final third with a lack of numbers, and that's a balance that he's got to try and address if this Aberdeen team really wants to kick on. But I mean, they had a really dismal start to the season. There was questions asked whether the manager could turn it around or not. He's got a few results, but they're still miles off where they should be. I mean, Dave Cormack, the Aberdeen chairman, it's been completely behind the manager, but he'll be hurting as much as anyone when he's seen that Premiership table just now and he sees Hearts at the top of the league, where Rangers and Celtic both struggling. You know what I mean? Aberdeen would have seen this as an opportunity, but instead it's Hearts who are sitting up there making the most of it, and that I think that'll hurt, and that will sting a lot of Aberdeen fans as well.
I think the thing is as well, Sonny, when you can see the league table there, down in 8th, obviously Aberdeen, which is, as Burnsy says, I mean, look, that just seems mad to me for a team. Whenever I see it in paper, I don't watch Aberdeen as much as Burnsy does, but when I see it in paper, it's a really good team with really good players, and I kind of think, fancy them today with that team, and they always kind of flatter to deceive. I mean, I don't know. How do you see it?
I feel like it's the oldest cliche in the book. Well, it's not that old. It's really since the formation of the new set of leagues have come in. But the teams that qualify into the European group stages struggle. It happens every single year. They find it difficult to cope with Thursday to Sunday. They struggle with it. And it happens all the time. And you're bringing in signings, you're trying to beef a squad up. What's the quality you're bringing in? You're trying to knit it together. You're having to swap and change and try. It's difficult. But it takes. I often find it takes clubs maybe need to do this 2 or 3 seasons to get into the swing of doing it. But they get one season at it. They're so bad in the league they don't qualify the next year. Look at Hearts. They're
Aye.
so bad at it. They're getting beat by Petro Cub. They get bombed out. They're so bad in the league. At this time last year, they're joint bottom with Hibs. And then they end up, they have a rebuild. They don't have Europe to worry about this season, and they're flying. Now, that's an easy excuse for Aberdeen, right? I'm making an easy excuse for them. 1 home win in 6 games in the league isn't good enough. And Jimmy Thelin's record this year, in the calendar year, has been atrocious in the league.
Yeah.
No one can get away from that. So it does sound like I'm making a bit of excuses for them because, let's be honest, they weren't playing European football in the second half of last season, were they? But in terms of the league position, it doesn't surprise me because I see that's happening all the time with a club that just, you know, in the recent terms, or anybody who's had to go in, even in the qualifiers. When Kilmarnock played in them last year, they like qualifiers, 6 ties. They ended up at the bottom, near the bottom of the league, and ended up spending the next 4 months there, scrapping, trying to play catch up. So you would hope Aberdeen will start to clear their feet a wee bit because they are going to go out. They're not going to go through in the European competition, and then they'll get a better run at it. But the ship may have sailed by then for Jimmy Thelin and for the league position. So it's not been good enough. It's not been good enough. And Burnsy sees them a lot more than I do, but you don't have to be. You don't have to be sitting in the seat of Pittodrie every week to know it's not been good enough.
I take your point, Swanee, about obviously the concern of playing the European football and the domestic stuff, but Aberdeen never picked up a point before they kicked a European ball. They never went in early. I mean, their domestic form before they even went into Europe was abysmal. Yeah. It was like rock bottom stuff.
Yeah.
But
did you find last year when they didn't have Europe, when he had a chance to build up through the Premier Sports Cup and he got some partnerships and he got a team knitted together and went into the season flying? Thought that helped as well. Playing in Europe's taking that away from them too. I'm not trying to make excuses for them.
As you say, it's exactly the same as Hearts this season. You know what I mean? They don't have any distractions. They can they've got a big squad. They can just get on with it and just concentrate in the league sort of thing. So sometimes it's not a bad thing, but the holy grail for these teams is getting into these European group stages, and 9 times out of 10 when they get there, it comes out of a cost, as Barry Robson and Aberdeen saw a couple of seasons ago.
I think the dream scenario is, Scott, I think what everyone's trying to do is to get into it 1 year, get the finances from it, but then consolidate and get back the next year. Yeah. I remember Robbie Nielsen spoke about that at Hearts. He said a one-off year isn't really, that's what you need to do is do it once, get the then consolidate and do it again, and then you can start to really build and kick on. But all that seems to be happening is it's just a rebound effect, and the team that does it just gets slapped right back down at the bottom of the league.
You never know. Hearts might get the Champions League money next season.
Who knows the way it's gone? Listen, who's digging me out for Christmas? When's the Christmas alarm coming, Daniel?
We might come to that.
I'm sure.
Before I let you go, Burnsy, very quickly, Bob Duff wants to know why Bilalovic, Kyrgyzstan, apologize for not doing that, and Frame don't get game time. He says 3 players that collectively cost $1.5 million. And I would just tack on at the end of that, if this form doesn't, upturn significantly, how much longer has Jimmy Thelin got?
Right, let me tackle the first part.
Sorry.
The 3 players there, Frame, Knutsen and Bilalovic.
He just showing you up there with pronouncing it. That's what
they were.
He didn't need to repeat that one, did he? He could have just said the 3 players.
Yeah, the 3 lads.
Stitched up.
the 3 lads. Daniel,
well done. Good work.
Obviously, Aberdeen spent a fair bit of money on those 3 players, and we've asked Jimmy the question on these 3 players umpteen times, and it's always the same answer. We've signed players for the now to hit the ground running, and we've also signed players for the longer term. You've used these 3 players as the longer term, so whether that's 6 months, whether that's a couple of seasons down the line, whether the manager will see the benefits of these, who knows? But that's the argument of these 3, that they're not quite ready to play in his first team every week, but they've got great potential, and that's why they've signed them. And Aberdeen feel they can develop them into first team regulars, and then in the model what they've used previously with Bojan Miovski and Lewis Ferguson, etc., they can eventually move them on for bigger fees. The second part, your second question there, how long can this go on with regards to the manager? I genuinely thought that the manager's position, I thought he could have well gone by now. At the start of the season, when they hadn't won any games and they were struggling to score a goal, it really was dire. I accept that back in May they won the Scottish Cup final, so he's got a lot of credit in the bank. But it just looked like everything he was trying, it just wasn't working. And I thought at that point, surely it's only a matter of time. But anytime you speak to anyone at Aberdeen or the Aberdeen hierarchy, they are 100% behind the manager. There's never been any thoughts of Jimmy moving on. So as it stands, unless the form falls off a cliff again domestically, I think he'll be there till the end of the season.
Interesting.
At least.
Aye. Well, interesting. I guess time will tell. For now, though, Burnsy, we'll let you go. Thank you so much for joining us on the Hotline Live. It's always good to have a Burnsy cameo.
All the best.
I thought you'd frozen there, sorry.
Hello and good night.
Cheers, Burnsy. Cheers, Burnsy.
Cheers, lads. Good luck.
Scott Burns there. Swanee, last night's show, it was very Rangers heavy because I had Scott on from Dens Park. I thought tonight we should obviously talk about Celtic. I know you were obviously at Celtic's win over Killie yesterday. The best, well, not the best place, but the place I wanted to start is regarding the manager search, because there is a new favourite in the running to be the next permanent Celtic manager. Wilfried Nancy, the Columbus Crew manager, is apparently top now of the odds. Kajetli, I'm having a terrible time tonight with the names. Knutsen. Aye, there you go. Knutsen, he is second, and obviously Martin O'Neill's still in there as well. Kieran McKenna, Robbie Keane. I mean, look, obviously, I don't expect you to know much about the MLS.
Before these markets fluctuate with a fiver.
But I mean, what do you think of that? Certainly, it looks like they're going down a different route from previously Celtic.
Well, I think it's just a case of if Celtic aren't investigating all avenues and looking in all areas, then they're doing something wrong, because they should be. And they should be sounding out different places and different areas and scouting different countries and seeing who's available. That's just called due diligence. That's what you've got to be doing. And I'm sure, and would be 100% there is a stack more names on there that they're looking at that aren't on there, that they're sounding out and having a look at. Who's available and when's he available. It's a big world, and Celtic there's a lot of people that they can be looking at, and I don't blame them for looking a bit further afield if that's the route that they're taking.
I've seen Mark asks if we have any news on Knutsen, and look, he's the one that obviously the Bodo Glimt manager. He's the one that I think a lot of fans would look at and would love, him to come in and take over at Celtic. He's obviously taken Bodo into the Champions League at the moment, though. And I've seen reports that he won't leave until that campaign's over with in January. If that was to be the case, do you think Celtic would go for that and maybe keep O'Neill and Maloney in situ?
Well, this just comes down to discussions. If they were having discussions, or the type of discussions they're having with him, how convinced they are about him. My view on it is, it's not a 2-week job. It's not a month job. I said this during the Rangers thing as well. Yeah. If Celtic think Kjetil Knutsen is the man that they want, you wait to January and you get him. You don't just jump and take someone else for now. Why would you need to do it? Listen, Martin O'Neill only came in to do the 4 games. That's what he said at the time. That was all he was looking at. It's a hard job. It's hard going, It's clearly, it's clearly been tiring for Martin over the last couple of weeks or so, charging about 2 games a week and all over Europe. But it's true.
He's not the kind of guy that can just sit there and watch it.
He's saying that. He said it himself. That there's been a lot going on, and he's had a lot to deal with in a short space of time. So he's going to have a But if Celtic come and ask Martin O'Neill the question, I'm sure he'd do it, because I just think he's so for the club and he wants to help. But if they ask him, if they were they to ask him to do it, I'm pretty certain I'm 100% certain he would do it. Well, I can't be 100% because I can't see inside Martin O'Neill's head. In my head, he's 100% to do it, because I just don't think he would say no. And I think, with Sean Maloney and Mark Fotheringham there helping him out, I think he would. So I think if Celtic listen, we've argued this various nights on this show, and I've spoken to Chris Sutton about it and things, and different views on can you wait till now and can you wait till then. Possibly the end of the season would be too long. I think Celtic need a bit of conviction here. But if you're only talking about January, if this is about Kjetil Knutsen and you're talking about January, then just wait. Just wait if that's the one you want.
Interesting. On the pitch matters, Swanee, there's a couple of things that I want to throw at you. First of all, Eddie's written in saying, looking at Simpson, Pusey, Osmond, Trusty, even Engels getting a game again, it's fair to suggest Rodgers was quite happy sabotaging Celtic's season in order to win his petty argument with the board. I can't see any other reason why such capable players were given such limited playing time under him this season. And Rebel in the comments says something similar, not about sabotaging. What I don't get is why Trusty couldn't get a look in under Rodgers, and since Martin O'Neill came in, he's starting and looking way better than CCV has shown for a while now. On the pitch, Swanee, it does seem kind of weird to me that players like Osmond and Simpson Pusey, I get, it wasn't the hardest game from yesterday, but it does seem a bit weird that they literally didn't kick a ball under Rodgers.
Yeah, but I think, listen, that call about Rodgers sabotaging, no football manager attempts to lose football games. They just don't, right? That just doesn't happen. Now, what I will agree with on it is one manager's view of a player might be completely different to another manager's view of a player, and something might have happened at Lennoxtown, or Brendan Rodgers has watched someone in a training session, or someone's done something in a game and it's just made his mind up and he's went, no, I'm not having him. And the mind's made up and that's it. And that happens. Don't tell me that doesn't happen with managers all over the world. They make their mind up on players and they're just, for whatever reason, it's not happening now. You could say, oh, that one was a club signing and that one was this and all these things we've heard. He doesn't want to play him because that. None of us are going to really know. But you can't have a situation where a manager just looks at a player and thinks, nah, not for me, for whatever reason. So a new manager can come in, and what tends to happen with the guys who haven't been playing is if the new manager comes in and puts a bit of confidence in and says, I think you're a player, son, and plays him, he's going to shine straight away. Because instantly the guy who's been left out constantly has seen the gaffer that didn't rate him walk out the door. He's got a new guy in who says he's magnificent and gives him a jersey. You're going to get that bounce. You're only going to get that bounce for so long, but you are going to get the bounce. Now, I think Celtic fans have seen enough in Austin Trusty in the Champions League to know that he's well capable of doing a job. The Austin Trusty did pick up an injury earlier in the season, but he wasn't in the starting lineup before he did, to be fair. But Austin Trusty also had his moments like at Dens Park last season when he was getting ragdolled by strikers when Celtic, I think, drew 3-3 in a game and switching off at set pieces when they lost a game at St Johnstone, things like that. So, like everything, guys become better players when they're not playing.
Yeah.
I happen to be a fan of Trusty, but let's not make him Franco Baresi when he's not playing in the team. And that tends to happen. And the Engels probably hasn't had the impact at the start of this season that a lot of people thought he would have. But again, we don't know what was happening behind the scenes. We don't really know how he was feeling. But, probably there might be a tiny subtle thing in the game that Brendan Rodgers is asking him to do that he maybe not really, and then it just starts from there. And then a new manager can come in and just change the mindset. And obviously, Sean Maloney worked with the Belgian squad. So he'll be, Engels will have a reference point there, although he was too young to be in it when Sean was there. I don't mean that, but I just mean that he'll have a good reference with Sean.
Yeah.
He'll probably know quite a lot about him. So it just happens with players. I don't think anybody... I refuse to believe that any manager deliberately picks teams to get beat. I do believe that managers sometimes lean team selections on maybe what they see rather than what is the bigger picture and make their mind up in their own heads with players when maybe it's a bit no fair. I think that does happen.
Yeah.
And if Celtic fans want to argue that's what's happened with some of those players this season, I'm not going to sit here and disagree with them.
In the comments, Marzuno says, yes, Brendan did want to be the first Celtic manager to lose the league to a non-Glasgow club for 40 years. Obviously a bit of sarcasm there, I think. Mark says, being told that your manager didn't want you and you were a club signing to being a starting player the new manager rates is a huge difference.
That's my point.
Yep. Rebel says, Trusty plays against the Hearts. We're possibly getting a draw there. And P. McLaughlin says, I still think there was a major bust-up in the dressing room at half-time in the League Cup final last December. Trusty was hooked at half-time that day and was hardly seen after that. I mean, who knows? But the one thing I would ask you about, Swanee, is just generally Celtic on the pitch since Martin O'Neill's come in. You can see, again, P. McLaughlin's in 70-plus efforts at goal in the 3 domestic games. O'Neill's been in charge. They've scored 8 goals in the last 2 games, 28 in total in the league. I think 8 goals in the last 2 games. I think in the previous 8 games, they'd scored 12. So there's definitely been an upturn in form, I guess. Would you agree with that?
Well, one thing that's happened since Martin O'Neill in the games that Martin O'Neill's come back, and actually, even though it only lasted for about 4 or 5 minutes, it actually did happen in Denmark against Midtjylland as well. But if you take the European tie out of it, I think there was a stat earlier in the season after about 8, 9, 10 games. Someone on here, a Celtic fan is going to come on and tell me exactly what this stat is or correct me. I think they scored once in the first half in about 8 games or something, or twice. Something crazy. Celtic were always synonymous with fast starts, especially at Celtic Park. Started games on fire. Think about the Falkirk game. Came blasting out the blocks and got in front. Yesterday against Kilmarnock, Dyson made them miss a great chance after 3 minutes. Johnny Kerry's hit the post after 5 and a goal up after 8. And it could have been more. Look at the way they started the semi-final against Rangers. Their intensity got, Rangers came into the game second half, well, actually after they got a man sent off. But Celtic's performance in the first half was dynamite. And what they've been doing is they've started with intensity and they're getting their noses in front. And that's been the big difference, I think. Because by the end of Brendan Rodgers' tenure, it was just becoming, I think the word everyone used was stale, passive. Celtic fans complaining sideways, backwards, keep the ball. It's not exactly launch it long with Martin O'Neill, but there is an intent to get it to the forward players quicker. Get it in the box, get some crosses in there, make some things happen. I think it's just something as subtle as that, but they have started games really well. The 3 domestic games have started brilliantly and I've won the 3 of them. So
yeah,
that's the one thing for me. There seems to be like an intensity about it, and that's been encouraging for Celtic. Just a case of how long we don't know now what's going to happen with whether it'll be somebody else's style of football or whether, as I suspect, it might be Martin.
The other thing that I wanted to ask you just about on the pitch yesterday, Swanee, was Celtic's left back issue, which seems to be up for debate all the time. Marcelo Sirachi started yesterday, obviously came off clutching his hamstring in the first half, which obviously more injury news for Celtic. It just never rains but it pours.
Yeah.
Kieran Tierney come on, scored a really good goal. How do you think he played overall? And are we starting to see finally the old Kieran Tierney? Or is that unrealistic to even demand that now, if you know what I mean? I get he's only 28, but he didn't kick a ball for, the best part of 2.5 years at one point?
Yeah, I think, listen, what do people class as the old Kieran Tierney, rampaging up and down and just charging about? I think possibly.
Yes.
Once you play at a higher level, with the greatest respect to Celtic, you're playing the English Premier League, you maybe become a bit more positionally disciplined. You can't just empty your space once you've been coached that way for so long. 5 years it was at Arsenal?
Aye, 5 or 6.
Into your psyche that you don't just buccaneer and empty your position all the time. You're a wee bit more. So I don't think, you will. Celtic fans will see the Kieran Tierney, the teenager that was tearing up and down. That doesn't mean to say he can't be effective and get himself forward and make goals and make things happen. He was doing some stuff yesterday, which was a bit more like we would have expected when Kieran Tierney came back. It's probably the best way to say it. Kieran Tierney would be the first man to admit himself that he's not hit the heights since he returned. And it was a genuine debate whether he or Marcelo Sirachi were the first pick. If you want to call it first pick, do you have them these days in modern football? Are we allowed to say that? But it was becoming a debate amongst the Celtic fans which one, and no one thought that was going to happen at the start of the season when Tierney came back with all the fanfare. So it was good to see Kieran score a goal yesterday. Again, he played well. There's a lot of pressure on him now. It's just going to be him because, listen, it's hard to know. We haven't had the exact update on Marcelo Sirachi yet, but given the fact Callum Osman and Alistair Johnson are facing operations and months on the sidelines now with similar problems, hamstring problems, it just depends what grade it is, whether it's a tear or whatever it is. I'm sure we'll find out soon enough. But if he's out for 4-6 weeks, that just puts the pressure on Kieran, because what is the option? What is now the option for Celtic? The only one I can see, unless it's someone in from stepping up from the academy team, is maybe Liam Scales switching out to left back. But then Celtic are struggling for centre halves. What do you do there? Does Simpson play in the middle next to Austin Trusty? I mean,
a few people saying Swan in the comments, Inamura. Maybe get a look in again.
Inamura might get, yes, absolutely. It's actually my mistake. I forgot about him, so that's my fault. Actually, when I was talking about the academy, I forgot about Inamura. Yeah, he might get a look. I think we remember. Again, it might depend on who the manager is. Yeah. I don't think Martin O'Neill. If we think back to Martin O'Neill's teams of the past, it was, everybody had a physical presence about them in the back line. And when with Jamal Simpson-Pusey playing at right back yesterday, he's a centre half.
Mm-hmm.
He's not afraid to put a centre half out there for height and physique. Defend first and foremost. That's your job. So it wouldn't shock me if Liam Scales got a stint at left back. But listen, fingers crossed for Kieran Tierney and for Celtic that, you know, he stays fit and really gets flying. But it's going to be a big ask. If Sirachi's out for 6 or 8 weeks, that's going to be a big ask, playing every minute of every game. So there's going to have to be some sort of contingency plan there. Maybe Simpson-Pusey might end up at left back.
Who knows? Just on Sirachi though, Swan, I think he's a brilliant player, Sirachi. Like, from the wee bits I've seen, I think he's excellent. I think
he started the game great yesterday.
Aye. Yeah. But I would like to think Celtic behind the scenes are maybe trying to get a deal done, but who knows? As you say, so much is up in the air. But if Celtic were starting a cup final tomorrow, a must-win game, who do you think would start at left back or should start at left back? I'm throwing you right under the bus.
I'm hobbling around. Sorry, that was terrible. That wasn't fair. That's a very tough question. That is a tough question because I think most people would probably, the Rangers game, a massive game, and Sirachi was there. So, I've got that right, haven't I? I've got that wrong, have I?
No, you were right. Aye.
So, but then other people say, well, Europe, that's a bigger game, and the Tierney's in that one. I genuinely don't know. If you're asking me on form this season, it might just be Sirachi.
I agree, actually. Aye,
just on form this season.
Aye, no, I completely agree. And I guess only time will tell. Obviously, Marzun in the comments says think we have to accept that Tierney won't be terrorising that left wing like the old days. David says Sirachi was excellent. Get the ball into the box quick. Mark says we need to have an in-depth look at the training. No way we should be having so many injuries, especially hamstring injuries. It is a lot.
That is interesting, Daniel. Yeah, I mean, I remember the kick up at Rangers and Philip come on, on about science and all this stuff, and the sports science telling them this and that. The next thing about players, and you do find these things happening in batches at clubs, don't you? You see it down south as well. Tottenham last year under Ange Postecoglou had about 8-10 guys all out at once, and always kind of never rains but it pours, as the phrase you used earlier. And I think that's just the situation. So I don't know why it is. Maybe it's because guys are having to play more minutes because they're having to cover for injured guys, and that's what's breaking them down. I don't know.
Yeah. And Mark, just finally in Celtic, Mark's actually hitting something that's something of mine that I wanted to get your take on very quickly, Swanee, is Paulo Bernardo. He wasn't actually in the squad yesterday, and it looked a lot of people kind of surmising that maybe he's played his last game for Celtic with the January transfer window not far away. I always think Bernardo is a really good player, a really talented midfielder. I'm just really surprised that his Celtic career seems to be frittering away.
I think most people are, and we would love to get to the bottom of what it is. I don't know whether the lad's lost form completely in training or whatever, or something's affecting him. I don't know what it is. But when, he showed plenty of signs in that first loan season, then Matt O'Reilly gets sold, the big money gets paid to bring him in the permanent deal. I sat at the press conference that day when Paulo Bernardo said, I will take Matt O'Reilly's place. I want to do this. That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to bring the goals. And I don't know what's happened. I don't think anybody knows what's happened. And we're just seeing fleeting glimpses now. We came on in Denmark the other night, and nothing really much happened there. And I think he was afforded an opportunity from the start earlier in the season, wasn't he, in one of the matches? And did very little in the game. I mean, that is slightly unfair. You bring a guy in completely from the cold, stick him in the start lineup and expect him to dazzle. I think it was
the Braga game as well.
That's not an easy thing to do. At the very least, you would hope, as a player, if you've had a sustained period out the team, you would get 3, 4, 5 games to get yourself up to speed. But it was in and straight back out. I don't know what's happened to the lad. That's the God's honest truth. I do not know. But something's affecting him, struggling. I don't know. But he's certainly not. The one thing I can say with some certainty is he's not developed into the player I thought he might.
Yeah. No, but you've hit the nail on the head. I thought he was going to develop into a serious player for Celtic. I thought paying whatever they paid, was it £4 or £5 million maybe, as much as that?
I never thought he'd get to the levels of what Matt O'Reilly was when he left. Don't get me wrong, I never thought he was going to get to be as good as that. But I thought he would be a consistent guy you could put in most weeks, 7, 8, 10, and a guy that could be trusted in a big game, or you could put him into a situation. I'm not seeing him at all now.
Yeah, I thought they would be able to recoup whatever they spent on him comfortably.
That's probably the acid test of it, isn't it? What did they get for him?
It's interesting. God knows. I guess we might find out in January. Time is getting away from us, Swanee. I mentioned at the top of the show, it was very Rangers heavy last night, which is why we've been talking about Celtic tonight. If you didn't see that and you want to hear about Rangers from the weekend, last night's show's there if you want to have a look at it. But I do have a clip, Swanee, from Rangers on loan Tottenham winger Mikey Moore. I think we can hear a little bit of what he had to say after the game yesterday.
How do you assess how this loan move has worked out for you so far? It felt like a difficult start.
Yeah.
How do you assess it in general?
Yeah, I think it was a difficult start for me, and I don't think I showed anywhere near what I know I can do. And I think mentally it's been unbelievable for me. It's a massive club, and I think strengthened me up a lot. 'Cause it's the first bit of probably the toughest time I've been through. So now I'm happy to be coming out of it, but now I need to keep on going and performing.
There were rumours like a couple of months ago that you might go back and you weren't happy. Did you hear that, or was that never the case?
Yeah, I think a lot of stuff goes in the media. What's never true. So I was never ready to go back. I always knew that at some point it would change, and I've changed it for myself a little bit in the last few weeks. But I need to keep building and playing even better than I am. So I'm picking up goals and assists. I said in midweek that I need to. So I'm happy with the goal today.
It also feels like he's giving you a lot more freedom to come in and play rather than just hugging the touchline. Is that fair?
Yeah, I think it helps me being in that role. I think I always want to be involved in the game as much as possible, and I like to get in them pockets. I can play wide, but I think I've had a bit of a mix of both. So I'm enjoying the role I've been given.
The reason why I wanted to bring up Mikey Moore, Swan, is because he also said yesterday that when asked if Rangers are still in the title race, he said, yes, 100%, we still have to play the other top teams multiple times. And I thought it'd be a perfect way to end the show by asking you, are Rangers in the title race? And at the moment, would you still make Hearts favourite? Or would you make Hearts favourite, rather?
I don't think Rangers are in the title race until they prove that they're in the title race, if that makes sense. It's okay saying you've got the main contenders to play again and there's still the games. That's great. Rangers are going to have to go on a sustained run of 7, 8, 9, 10 successive wins before they can start talking about that, before they can start talking us. And has there been any signs this season of that happening? None whatsoever. Now, that might change under Danny Rule, might get them off and running and flying and go the next game at Tynecastle and win there and beat Celtic at Celtic Park. But Rangers are going to have to prove they're in the title race before I think anybody can say they're in the title race. Because points-wise, you would say, well, yeah, of course they are. You know, they've got a game in hand, so if they win that, they're only 9 behind Hearts and there's, 27 games to go about.
Aye.
So, you know, of course, technically they are, but Rangers are going to have to show us a lot more before they be considered as contenders at this stage. Are Hearts favourites? No. Celtic are still favourites in my eyes.
Interesting.
Behind if they win their game in hand, I would still make them favourites. But they have got a lot to contend with at the moment, and they've got a lot of injuries, a lot of problems. The squad is threadbare now, and it's going to be interesting what they do in January, because when you have a situation with guys like Cameron Carter-Vickers and Alistair Johnson, such vital players are out, you can't budget in January to buy new players to replace them. You don't spend £10 million on defenders when you've got a defender worth that. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, I get what you mean now.
I'm planning, so it might have to be loans and plugging gaps so that's going to be interesting. And listen, Hearts will add again in January. So I don't expect Hearts to just collapse and fall away. I think they'll probably stay up there. I've said it time and time again. I want to see where they are. I'm pushing it back now to the end of January. But listen, in all seriousness, Hearts have shown that they are starting to now prove it, changing the team. And I know people are going to go, 2 draws in the last 3 games. There was always going to be moments. They're still unbeaten, you know. So they're going to have days there. McInnes, I think, called it an off day yesterday. So they just didn't play well, didn't lose. Had an off day and didn't lose.
Still unbeaten.
So, you know, I think they'll still keep, but there's going to be tests of their mettle coming up, no doubt about it. So I still make Celtic favourites. As for Rangers being contenders, well, they're going to have to show it.
Yeah. The very last thing, Swanee, I know I always say the last thing and then add something on, apologies. But
There
the
was
very
a TV show called The Last Thing, and they kept doing the same thing.
that'd be the perfect host.
Yeah.
I should have mentioned this before, but Rangers came out tonight. I've requested a meeting with SFA about Austin Trusty. That's why, to be honest, I didn't want to go too in depth about this because we've said all we can say about it, really. We have to kind of flag it up, but I can't believe we're still talking about this incident, really, to be honest. Just madness.
Neither can I.
Aye.
Still.
I think that's all. I think that's all.
Listen, whether you agreed with what Rangers said in the beginning, once they'd said that after the KMI panel report came out, it probably doesn't surprise you that this has happened. Probably kind of feel like they had to do something to back it up. But what's going to change? And Rangers aren't getting the place against St Mirren in the final. Move on.
Doesn't change it.
Concentrate on winning the title.
Absolutely. Chris in the comments sums it up, says day 8, unbelievable.
Yeah.
Can only agree.
I mean, that's it. What good does it do, really?
I think on that note, Swanee, that brings us to the end of Monday night's Hotline Live with Record Sport. Thank you very much for all the comments tonight. We massively appreciate it. If you want to get in touch with Keith Jackson, give him stick for having his 9th holiday this year, that's totally fine, no problem. And Swanee, understand the darts are coming on, so I'll let you get away to that.
Yes, so move it along. Deal with some important sport.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Thanks very much for watching. We'll be back at 6 p.m. tomorrow night. Hope you can join us then. Cheers.
All the best.